to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, all your strength, all your mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself is indeed the great command, the greatest. And Jesus confirms this as he honors this question and this response. But then he is asked a further question: who is my neighbor? I'd like to tell you the story of a young girl by the name of Kateri, or Kateri, as they say in the Mohawk language, growing up in northern upstate New York. This girl was born of an Algonquin mother who had been baptized across our borders. They don't have a border, by the way. The Mohawk Nation goes from upstate New York to lower Canada, and for them there is no border. These are artificial borders called U.S. and Canada, okay? So their nation crosses that border. Kateri's mother was baptized on the north side of our border in a place called Trois-Rivières, the Three Rivers, that has a magnificent shrine to the Blessed Virgin Mary, in fact, and to St. Anne. Her mother and her father and her only sibling, her brother, when she, Kateri, was 4 years old, all died of smallpox. Kateri got it as well. It affected her vision for the rest of her life. It impaired her vision. And in addition, Kateri had a facial disfigurement as well as other parts of her body. So from that moment on, you can imagine the uncle and aunt who took her in were very nervous about her being around the other children, right? Because smallpox, of course, was contagious. She was not at this point, but there was always that fear. So, sort of like some characters in a fairy tale who has big sisters that get treated better, so for poor Kateri. She made up for it by working hard. She was industrious, she was helpful, and interestingly enough, 3 Jesuit missionaries appeared at her new home, where she was residing, with relatives. And they began to speak of this Jesus Christ. Now, she had heard that her mother had been baptized, and her mother as a little girl had tried to teach her some of the prayers. But of course that was sort of lost. She knew something of this faith, but not very much. Now, from these Jesuits, she's very interested, and so she pays close attention. And as she listens, she begins to fall in love with Jesus himself. But she keeps much of this to herself, right? She has to keep quiet. She's a servant girl, not a full child in her new family, if you understand what I'm saying. As years went on, they attempted to marry her off, and she ran out. She ran away. She was not going to have anything to do with it because she already wanted to give her life to Christ. Now, she knew nothing about religious orders other than the Jesuit priests. She didn't know that there were orders of women religious. But somehow, deep in her soul, she knew God was calling her to a relationship, an intimate relationship with her son. By the way, she's not yet baptized. She's not a Christian, baptized Christian yet. But in her soul, she already received the Lord. After some time, she, at the age of 20, asked for baptism. She, in various attacks on their tribe, helped the Jesuits with the victims, did great corporal works of mercy, and now they began to make fun of her. Oh, you're one of those Christians, because most of the Mohawks had not yet converted. So with more and more persecution, more and more suffering, the Jesuits decided, we need to get you out of this area, cross the rivers, and get up to Canada, where we have a community of baptized Mohawks who will receive you well. And in fact, one of her mother's relatives actually lived there. Her name was Anastasia. She took the religious name Anastasia, the baptismal name. Eventually, they whisk her away, get her to this place, and she spends the rest of her years on earth making reparation for all that had gone on in her tribe and praying for the conversion of her people. She died at the age of 24, and this is the date, July the 14th, that celebrates her entrance into paradise, and she was just canonized a few months ago, last fall. Many still do not know that she is not Blessed Kateri, but Saint Kateri. As we went on to the Mohawk Reservation about 10 days ago to make our pilgrimage from Montreal to her tomb, you clearly knew once you were on the reservation, you were in a different world. The church, though it looks like it might have been built 100 years ago, is very humble. And the girl, the young Mohawk girl who guided us through the church, reminded me of Kateri. And she explained how, upon the death of Kateri, great conversions began to happen among the tribe. Many were baptized. Her prayers were answered. Do you know what else happened when the day she died? Within 15 minutes of her death, and the Jesuit priest who was tending to her at her deathbed said he saw it with his own eyes. All the pox from the smallpox on her face disappeared. She had pristinely beautiful face, and everyone knew they were in the presence of a saint. Now, the final miracle for her canonization happened not too long ago with a boy named Jake. Jake, and I believe his last name is something like Fishbonner, who, Native American, in Oregon or Washington State, had contracted a flesh-eating disease by putting his hands on a seat in the gymnasium. He was a middle school basketball player. And wherever they were playing, when they sat down, he just put his hands down on the seat, right? Which, of course, loads of people do. Unbeknownst to him or the coach or the team, someone had been there and left this disease, which he then contracted. And guess what? His whole face was marked up as though he had had smallpox. The doctors couldn't do anything for him. He was dying in the hospital, and they called on a sister, a Native American nun, Sister Kateri, who had a relic of then Blessed Kateri, went to the hospital, prayed over him, blessed him with the relic, and by the next day, his whole body, which had been swollen, it all began to recede, and no doctor could explain this miracle. No one. And so it was the final miracle for her canonization as now Saint Kateri Tekakwitha. Who was the Good Samaritan for Kateri? Well, the Good Samaritan is, of course, Jesus Christ. It is the perfect self-portrait that Jesus painted in the gospel of his own mission. Who's the half-dead? That's us. Half-dead because of sin. In fact, many almost entirely dead. But Jesus is the Good Samaritan, and he brings grace, healing, life. He takes the burden of the half-dead soul, puts it on his back, and brings it to the inn. What's the inn? It's the church, where then healing begins to happen. Sacraments are received. New life is granted. And so, in the case of Kateri, it was those Jesuit missionaries who came selflessly, not for their sake, but for the salvation of souls. They came and served on the Mohawk Reservation among the Iroquois, and do you know, even after several of them had been killed, tortured first, sent back to France for healing, they came back. Jean de Brébeuf, St. John de Brébeuf, right? Isaac Jogues and others. They came back and they planted the seeds, and eventually great fruit was born of their work. So the Jesuits were the then 1600s Good Samaritans. Now, the question for us is, what's our mission? who is our neighbor. It's very clear to Jesus, everybody's your neighbor. Anybody who's in need of mercy is your neighbor, not just the person in the house next to you here or there, not just your first cousins and your second cousins and your third cousins, not just the people inside your house. The neighbor for Jesus is anyone who needs mercy. And the Good Samaritan is the one who is merciful. So how do we then carry out the mission? Kateri, who had been deeply wronged by her own people, spent her final years praying for their conversion and making reparation. Will we do the same for those who have wronged us? Will we do the same in order to get the message out that there is a good Samaritan who wills to save every soul? One of the ways that this archdiocese has participated in getting the news out is through Catholic radio. And today we have the new director for Catholic Radio in New Mexico, Anita Fate, who's going to share a few words now with us about how we can help spread the good news. Anita. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Monsignor. I'm here from Catholic Radio. Immaculate Heart Radio is broadcast here in Albuquerque on 98.9 FM. We're here at the invitation of His Excellency Archbishop Michael Sheehan. Immaculate Heart Radio broadcasts a variety of programs that help you in your faith, help you inspire yourself to share your faith, help you to raise your children to honor God, and to address important issues of the church. I have some current program guides that I will be handing out after Mass if you'd like to get one today, or you can also get one on ihradio.com. Full-time Catholic radio is very rare in the United States. Of the 15,000 radio stations here in America, 10% are dedicated to Protestant religious programming and only 1% to Catholic broadcasting. Immaculate Heart Radio is changing lives. It certainly changed mine. I was born and raised Catholic. I was born right here in Albuquerque, and this is my home parish. I went to Catholic school and attended Mass. My parents brought me to church every Sunday, but I had no idea whatsoever how to share my faith, what evangelization meant. I had no idea how to defend my faith until I started listening to Catholic radio, and it just drew me in. We often hear this from a lot of our listeners, that they're out there searching and seeking, and they find us, and they come home to the church. We reach over 1 million listeners here in the Albuquerque area at a cost of over $300,000 per year just for Albuquerque's 98.9 FM. We don't get any government grants, and we're all supported by Catholic listeners like yourself. So today I'm here to ask you to please tune in to Catholic Radio if you're not already listening, and really just dive in and find something that is just calling to you. And secondly, I'm here to ask you to pledge, to consider pledging to us. Catholic Radio is very difficult to keep on the air without your generosity and your donations. So I'm going to ask now those of you who are sitting on the inside aisle to locate an envelope with pledge cards and pencils. We're not asking for cash or check today. We're just simply asking for your name, your address, and the amount you would like to prayerfully pledge to us. This weekend we have an offer from a local donor who is going to match every dollar that Annunciation Parish contributes to Catholic Radio today. So for every dollar that you donate becomes $2, 100 becomes 200. And we just think that is absolutely very generous of the donor. If you're interested in any business information on how to sponsor a business, please talk to me after Mass. And you After you fill out your card at the end of Mass, you may put your pledge cards in the plastic bins that are at each of the exits about foot level. I thank you so much for listening to Catholic Radio. I challenge you to go out and find a program that you love on our Catholic station and continue listening. God bless you and have a wonderful Sunday.
Thank you, Anita, and thanks for all the work you do.